Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in today's video, sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, we got to talk about the new rally Shapur. We did testing this weekend. I went with Mr. Hope and a group of people who joined in from a bunch of kingdoms. We did a balanced custom arc test. Now, this is really important because we're not trying to test differences between people's gear. We're trying to test whether or not one thing is better than another in like an apples to apples comparison. So the way that we're doing this is in an Ark of Osiris practice match, and let me just pull forward the conclusions up front, okay? And I was surprised by this, but we'll go over the results and the methodology as well. Subscribe, by the way, if you like when I share the results up front. The thing that we learned is that Shapur, who, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but Shapur is a strong counter to shielding. And the biggest shield in town is obviously Hera. And the most common garrison used in Kingsland is anything with Hera. So what Shapur does is completely shut down the current meta for how to garrison in Kingsland, or often, well, sometimes anyways, what people are using in a pass, but especially toward the end of KVK. Now, the funny thing about this is that I said long ago, I think if you garrison Hera, it's because you want to lose KVK. And I said long ago that I felt like if you're garrisoning Hera, your trades are so much worse than if you just could mono troop, that you're going to trade so efficiently you just lose. But the thing is that for whatever reason, filling mono garrison seems to be this weird, impossible feat of strength. I don't know if it's just a mentality shift. Even with 5 kingdoms in our war camp, in this last KVK, when I battled 960 versus 1093, everybody was using Hera. Even though Gorgo with Toku is busted, everybody's using Hera. You got to be able to throw mixed troops in there, and you got to have a bunch of farms filling, and the only way to make that happen, apparently, seems to be a community consensus that you just use Hera. The problem is, he uses a shield. Shapur shuts down shielding, which means that Shapur is going to counter all the Hera garrisons. So whether or not everybody's right in their using Hera, that meta is officially over. Now, Shapur, it would seem, is not all that good at handling being swarmed. So although he will shut down shield effects, and he needs to be the primary for this ideally, because if you have the same rage cycle as your enemy, okay, Hera is always used as a secondary. So what that means is Shapur is going to use their active skill. Your enemy is going to use their active skill. There's a second of downtime. This debuff is now applied. The secondary commander in Shapur's army is going to use his active skill. Hera is going to go to use his at the same time. Sucks to suck. Can't receive any shields right now. I think that's how that's going to go. Maybe I'm slightly off on the timing. But I think we kind of locked in that you'd prefer Shapur to be the primary. Maybe it's different for a long-running rally, and I'll show you the test results when he's primary or secondary. We used Asher Benapal for a lot of the testing because we assumed he would kind of be meta, and there's good reason for that, okay? Shapur is going to make it so that when you're gaining buffs, you have a chance to get some other effects, which is pretty cool. So this is whenever this commander deals skill damage, if this commander is leading a rally, whenever the rallied army grants a buff. Well, gosh, who goes and grants buffs? None other than Asher Benapal. Asher Benapal, every time you use an active skill, is going to grant a buff. Now, I will say that this influenced the testing that we were doing because there's definitely randomness in the quality and timing of these different buffs that you can get, but it ranges from attack, health, or defense to normal and skill damage. Obviously, skill damage being the best of these things, probably the normal damage being the worst for this particular pairing. But what we did find is that Shapur primary, Ash secondary is probably the way to go from our testing. Now, with that said, what surprised us is that Shapur did not do as well as we thought it would do against the infantry garrison. This really shocked me, but also illustrates just how strong Gorgo with Toku is and why I've been saying for literally 2 KVKs now that, like, you just need to find a way to use it. And, like, if the garrison burns because you can't fill it, then it burns. But, like, if your KVK is going to a place where it depends on somebody running out of troops at the end, like, fine. Like, trade better, move in on the mono, let some stuff burn. It is what it is. And, you know, maybe you can prevent more stuff with burning by having the Hera and filling. But now, dude, your trades, you're going to get wrecked. Now, the funny thing is that there is mighty shielding going on here. So you'd think that Shapur disrupting this shielding would be meaningful. In fact, not only does Toku have this, but also Gorgo has this, who assuredly I've favorited. Bro, Commander Blindness, it is a real condition affecting real governors. Okay. So here's mighty shielding as well. So you'd think, like, there's so many opportunities to disrupt the shielding here. It's got to be better. I don't know. For whatever reason, maybe it's just the fact that Hera's always been kind of a weak garrison and he's making it up with AoE damage anyways. But I think the general consensus that I've been seeing is that, like, yeah, Shapur is your best archer rally. He's a part of it. But I don't think it's quite as strong as people were expecting it to be. And, like, okay, I mean, we did get the best commander of all time in this last release. It's an archer. It's QSH. So, like, how busted were they going to make Shapur? All right. So let's go to the reports and let's talk about the methodology. We tested in an Ark of Osiris practice match. Wild Lion got the unlock and joined us. And he went, and it was a balanced test mode. So everybody used the same sort of equipment. We had everybody on Ring and Horn. Ring and Horn add a bunch of randomness, but we wanted to make sure that all the garrisons we were testing were using the same building blocks. Is that necessarily the best choice? Obviously not. But is it creating a sort of apples-to-apples situation? I think so. For the most part, everybody was using 2 KVK pieces and then whatever else is sort of meta for their troop type. And because it's a balanced mode, I believe that your city themes don't apply. I had a 5% defense token running, but I think Mr. Hope had a 10% defense token running. So it's worth mentioning that, like, Hope's actually got some extra stats there. But your troop type and civilization bonuses do count, and he is not using a rally civilization. So this is worth mentioning. He's missing the 5% rally damage. He's missing the special troop type. He's missing any extra stats you'd get from that. So he is not running, you know, one of the archer civilizations you would consider for rallying stuff. So the fact that he's got an extra 5% defense on the token, I don't know. I don't know that that's quite so backbreaking, given that I'm using Greece and I have an extra 5% health for infantry, right? So here we go. Garrisoning. You can see Gorgo Toku. Oh, this is the wrong one. Wait, how did I get to here? Gorgo Toku. There it is. Just actually crushed the Shapur Ashurbanipal. This was a very surprising result to me. Now, we ran it again, and we got a different result. So our conclusion here is that 2 trials is not enough data points to like connect the dots and draw a line. But it could be that obviously the randomness of how this fight starts is influencing the outcome in a pretty major way. But you wouldn't even expect this outcome to be possible if Shapur Ashurbanipal were super dominant, right? The next report, Gorgo Hera, absolutely destroyed, despite the fact that somebody reinforced the garrison. So on stream, we were like, oh, I guess we have to throw this test away because somebody reinforced. And then we were like, no, we don't throw this test away. We just talk about the fact that despite the garrison getting reinforced, it still got absolutely destroyed, shut down by Shapur, totally shut down. And we ran another Gorgo Hera, Shapur Ashurbanipal, shut down 2-for-1 trade. Disgusting. Now we ran Shapur with Ashurbanipal into Eleanor Hera. So now the cavalry troop typing should counter the archers, and a lucky proc at the start from Eleanor can dramatically change the calculus. Big instant proc damage here, but still the cavalry lose. Okay, we ran Eleanor Janziska, and that did better. Like, unironically, Janziska back in business? Question mark. Kind of wacky. We ran CY Hera, absolutely destroyed. Bro, I'd say rip archers, but they did just get QSH. But oh my god, actually kind of a funny outcome. We ran Janziska with Hera, and this also got kind of cooked. But I don't know, maybe not as cooked as the infantry did. Weirdly enough, there could be some randomness here. Something that we did align on is I think there's a skill that Jan Zizka has that actually is pretty handy here. So whenever their garrison takes skill damage, there's a 50% chance to dispel normal buffs. Normal buffs include all buffs that increase the target's attack, defense, and health, healing received, etc. So Jan Zizka, unironically, is a little bit of a counter to Ashurbanipal. Funny enough, he's also a little bit of a counter to the second skill here. Whenever their troop takes damage, there's a 25% chance to gain attack. So like, there's multiple ways in which Jan Zizka is actually unironically countering Shapur, which I would actually point to as a really good design, because I would say Jan Zizka was kind of under-leveraged, and so creating a way for him to get a little more leverage potentially seems kind of cool. Like, if I were garrisoning a pass and they're rallying with archers, I don't know. Do you put double cav in there? Eleanor Jan Zizka, are we back, baby? Is this how we get rid of calves in 2025? I don't know. So we ran Gorgo Toku again into Ashurbanipal Shapur, and this did, you know, not as bad as the other way around. Actually, it is kind of interesting that this time around, using Ashurbanipal primary seemed to have done better than the Shapur primary. That's actually something to sort of look into. We ran another Ash primary, Shapur secondary test. It did not do as well against the Hera as using Shapur as the primary. We ran Gorgo Toku into Shapur QSH. This did terrible, but I think QSH needs to be the primary. So we are going to get one of those tests in a minute here, I think. And then we've got Gorgo Toku against Shapur Henry. I don't think Henry's where it's at. People bring him in for the anti-swarm. I think Ashurbanipal's probably the answer. Maybe for anti-swarm. Maybe. That's what you do. And here's the QSH Shapur. Maybe we did something wrong here, but this did not do what we wanted it to do. Now, what this does do, and what people pointed out to me, is that this is kind of a get off my lawn rally, which I think is a funny way of describing it, because the QSH skill damage to everything around is like really, really, really high, apparently. But, you know, if you're rallying, you don't want to see this kind of trade, the 2-for-1 situation. That ain't good, chat. Now, look, I'm not going to pretend like this testing is perfect. Obviously, it's got its flaws, and we need to look at some real KVK scenarios. I've seen some reports floating around from 1960 rallying into 1093 using Shapur, and 1093 is using Hera because they're filling a pass and they got to stuff whatever in there, and the trades are not great. At least that's what I saw. I don't know. We got to do more digging, okay? So these are my sort of preliminary conclusions about Shapur, is that it's not, unlike QSH, which is like slam dunk, don't think, just max and focus it, right? Shapur is more clearly a shielding counter, at least from what I've seen. And the power of a shielding counter is that it basically is addressing the entirety of the Kingsland meta as I understand it right now, okay? And like I said 2 KVKs ago, like, if you want to win, I think you have to find a way to mono troop garrison. And now we're back to that world where, like, yes, Shapur basically shuts the door on a mixed troop garrison. Right up until maybe we get new leadership around the corner. Who knows? Subscribe if you want to see it. You enjoyed the video, throw a like on here. And if you want to see the full live stream where I went and did this testing, shout out to Mr. Hope and everybody who participated. I'll have a card in the end screen. You go watch over here. Check it out, man. This was it was fun to do. It was actually shockingly successful community testing. Nicely done, everybody.